Played for the New York Jets for almost 4 years. What was it like playing under Rex Ryan?
Oh man, Rex was great. Obviously, our seasons didn't end the way we wanted them to, but just learning from him and his charismatic energy and his positive reinforcement, everything that Rex was about was trying to improve, the team, not just on the field but off the field as well. So he was very fun to work for. He was very different from other coordinators and other head coaches, but we always had a good time. And I mean, he was a player's coach, and he always wanted what was best for us at the end of the day.
Darrin, you got to play alongside Darrelle Revis for 2 years when he was there with the Jets from 2015 to 16. Arguably the best corner of this generation. What did you learn on and off the field from Darrelle Revis as a teammate and as a player?
It's funny because when I was getting recruited by the University of Pittsburgh, Revis was my host on my official visit. So I've known Revis for a very long time. And it was kind of cool reconnecting with him once I got back, to New York to play with the Jets. But the first thing about Reeves, he was extremely humble. And that was the first thing I noticed about him, and I've learned from him. However many interceptions he had and how much money he made, he was very humble about it. And everything that he did in his work, it showed. That was the main thing I think I picked up on him. But on the field, he was a very patient corner. If you watch like his film and his technique, he was a technician, and he's probably one of the best technicians that the game has seen. And that's what I've learned from him. And over the years, it's kind of, once you get older, some of your skills diminish, and you see that in a lot of guys now. But his technique carried him a long way, and that was a big thing that I learned from him.
In 2014, I'm looking at your numbers right now. That was your best season. The Jets were 4-12. Rex Ryan was practically on his way out. Mm-hmm. And there were stories coming out from the Jets organization and really the fans that they wanted John Isnick out too. So what were your thoughts of playing under John when all this stuff was going on at practice? You had the helicopters, the planes flashing out, fire him, fire this, fire that. What was your thoughts with the whole John Isnick thing?
I really can't say too much about it, only because I know sometimes in the future, some things that you say may come back and haunt you. What I can say is that it didn't really affect me in any way. I had a job to do, and every day I had to try to go out there and be the best that I can be and try to myself. I mean, obviously, our records showed that we weren't a very good football team. However, we had a lot of good players. I had to continue to prove myself and continue to go out to work and get better. Because in that industry, if you don't, I mean, they'll find someone the next week. So for me, it really wasn't about who our GM was, who our head coach was. It was about me and making sure that I did everything that I can do to stay on the team.
Going back to Rex Ryan now, what is the most fascinating thing about him that maybe fans or analysts like us never knew?
His foot fetish.
We may have to come back to that. I have to think about that.
There's too many of them.
When you came to the Jets, what were your thoughts coming to an organization that went to back-to-back AFC title games in 2008 and 2009, and the team is kind of starting to fall apart and fall off? What were your thoughts coming to the New York Jets when you were traded to the Jets?
I'm going to go back a little bit. I was undrafted, so I signed an undrafted contract with Falcons, and then that year I was on a roster the whole year for the Falcons. I played the last couple of games, played in a playoff game, and then the following season I ended up getting injured in training camp, so the Falcons didn't release me, and then Revis had ended up getting hurt that same year. I believe it was his Achilles at that time. So obviously they were down the corner. So I was rehabbing and getting healthy. And then so they brought me on as a practice squad player so that once I did get healthy, I can eventually earn a spot on the roster. And I did that. But for me, my mindset, I didn't really know too many people on the team at that time. I knew Revis, but he was barely around. So for me, it was just coming there and getting healthy and then being the best player that I can be, learning the system and trying to better myself every day because this game is very cutthroat. And so already I was at a disadvantage being that I was injured, being that I was on a practice squad. I had to fight my way to make a name for myself. And then so that was my focus going there, just getting better daily and learning the system and trying to camaraderie type of friendship with some of the guys in the secondary so that they got used to me and I was used to them.
Compare the differences between Mike Smith when you were with the Falcons, his defensive style and his head coaching style, and when you got to the Jets with Rex Ryan. Two very different types of coaches, both schematically and personality-wise. What were some of the big differences to you?
Rex Ryan was very big in man-to-man coverage. As you can see, a lot of the corners that he either drafted or signed were guys that he felt that can play man-to-man. And so schematically, that was the biggest difference. When I was in Atlanta, it was a lot more zone principles. Even though we did play man, it was more zone principles. And that was one of the biggest differences schematically. But personally, it's night and day. Rex Ryan, you knew what he was thinking. You knew what he wanted to convey to the team. Like, his actions and his words spoke loud. And he voiced those opinions and those thoughts. He had the opportunity to. I can't say the same for Mike Smith. He was very stone face. His face was the same, whether he was mad, happy, sad, or whatever. His face was just the same. You never knew what he was thinking. You never knew what to do or what to say. It was just like walking on eggshells around him.
I could only imagine when you go to one place to the other, you get to know these guys' personalities. And imagine playing for Bill Belichick. Could you imagine that personality? Serious.
I couldn't.
Darrin, you played the cornerback position practically your whole life. When you watch some of the corners in this league, like Ramsey and all the top young corners in this league, do any of them stand out to guys like Darrelle Revis when you got the chance to watch him on the same field?
Stephon Gilmore is probably one of my favorite corners today. I've played against him. I've seen him work, and he is by far one of the top 3 corners in the league today. If you watch his technique and his football IQ, it's just off the charts. Him and, like you said, I do like Ramsey. But, yeah, I will have to say Gilmore. He plays the game the way she played the cornerback position. And he's smart. I mean, I love smart players now. I'm a coach now, so I kind of see it from the other end. But he's done a good job for himself lately.
Which corners, when you were growing up watching football, did you model your game around most, and why?
Charles Woodson, I think a lot of Notre Dame fans probably don't like to hear that, but he was my favorite. I mean, I just love his versatility being at Michigan. I watched him, and then once he got to the NFL, he was just a player that I felt like exemplified what it is to be a football player, not just a defensive back, but a football player. He was well-rounded, return game. He was offensive player. I mean, he was just, you name it, he could do it, and I just thought that he was the best thing out when I was coming up. That was my favorite player.
You're from Pittsburgh, and a lot of great players have come from Pittsburgh. Matter of fact, there's one running back right now for the New York Jets who grew up a Jet fan because of Curtis Martin, who is from Pittsburgh as well, and that's Le'Veon Bell. When you look at the product that the Pittsburgh high schools really put out there every single year, when you try to compare their product to some of the products from New Jersey, Florida, and Texas, do you think they're comparable to those states?
Absolutely. I mean, obviously, Florida, Texas, California, those states are a lot bigger, so they're going to produce a lot more athletes. And it's legit. I mean, you look at the guys who's from Florida who went to Miami and went to some of those schools and the people that they have in NFL today. It speaks volumes. But what I can say is that my school actually in Pennsylvania, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, Woodland Hills High School, at one point during my time in NFL, we had the most players from one high school in NFL active roster.
Wow.
I could put my high school up against a lot of these other high schools in the country. Not to brag or anything, but it is. And so, but yeah, Pennsylvania, I mean, there's a bunch of talent in Pennsylvania. I think when it comes to high school kids going to college, I think we're ranked in like the top 5 in states or something, close to with Ohio and Jersey or something like that. But Pennsylvania is definitely one of the states that put a lot of people in college and then also in NFL.
In your career, who was the toughest individual matchup that you had to face and the toughest team offense matchup that you had to face?
I would say Julio Jones. He is, in my opinion, I think he's the best receiver in the NFL. He can do it all. He's fast, run great routes, great hands. He's a specimen. My rookie year, I had to guard him every day in practice, and it wasn't fun. But I got better, and he's definitely the toughest to guard. The toughest offense, when Peyton Manning played, we played the Broncos. I would probably say they were the toughest because we kind of knew what New England was going to do because we played them twice a year. So we knew their offense. They had some tweaks every game, but for the most part, we kind of knew what they were going to do. But if you had to prepare for a week for a team, when Peyton Manning was on the Broncos, it's like, I don't know. I mean, what his stats were, but they were tough. I mean, he put the ball in places that only the receivers can get. They had option routes in like every play. It was insane.
I grew up a Jet fan, and I know you pretty well, Darrin. And in 2014, believe it or not, as bad as the Jets were, I loved the way you played in 2014. I really did. I mean, you came out of nowhere. You really did. And you were the best, in my eyes, you were the best corner on the field for the New York Jets in 2014. So I was really impressed with the way you played, and you played hard. So
yeah, I appreciate that. I kind of almost, I forgot, but now I remember now that the question you asked me about Rex Ryan, I guess what was the question? What was the most
the most fascinating thing about Rex Ryan, or maybe the best Rex Ryan story?
Yeah, we would have our defensive meetings, and obviously he's a defensive coordinator. And I realized after the fifth meeting that like Rex is never in the offensive meeting. Like he's never once we have our defensive meeting, he's there the whole meeting. And I'm like, does he go to the offense? Does he know offense? And basically Rex not one time ever went to an offensive meeting when we had installs. Ever. He basically said he don't know what offense is doing over there, so he's not going to be concerned. And so I thought that was kind of interesting that the head coach never went into an offensive install meeting, and he didn't care. He had faith in his coordinators and never really bothered them. And he admitted he don't know what the hell is going on the offensive side of the ball, so he's going to stick to the defensive side.
In 2017, you became a defensive coordinator for the Baldwin High School team. Are you still there?
No, I actually, I just accepted a position at Slippery Rock University, Slippery Rock, Pennsylvania. So I'm now the defensive back coach there. It's a Division II school, one of the best Division II schools in the nation.
So what is it like being a player and then going over there to a high school, a college, and teaching young kids just like you to become an NFL player?
My first year, it was a struggle for me because I had this knowledge of the game and I kind of knew how it should be played. And coming to a high school where football really wasn't a priority, and a lot of the kids weren't as athletic, or they weren't really taught the game properly. So the way that I learned it and the way that I played it, I was expecting my kids to do that, and I was expecting them to be at a level that was not real. It wasn't realistic. And so that was the biggest change for me, trying to gauge the talent and gauge what we can do, what we can't do. And that took a year or so. I mean, we took some lumps that year, and then we eventually got better over time. But it was a great move for me. I knew I always wanted to coach, and then the opportunity presented itself. I never coordinated a defense a day in my life until I got to Baldwin, and it was kind of cool. I mean, I learned so much from learning on my own and learning from my players, learning from my other assistants, my other coaches. So I really enjoyed my time there, and it was an eye opener to, being around high school kids and coaching and being a teacher.
Last question for me. If you were to name one play that was your favorite in your NFL career, what would it be, and describe why?
Favorite play? Without thinking too hard, if I had to say, it would probably be the first time I got my interception, my first interception of my career in a real game. That was in Atlanta. Falcons. We was playing against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I think that was 2011. It was off a tip ball, but I got killed. The offensive lineman came out of nowhere and crushed me. But if I would have to pick one, it would be that one, just because it was, my first time in a real live action game, and I got an interception, so it was kind of cool.
Did Rex Ryan ever show you that ugly Mark Sanchez tattoo that he decided to put on his body?
I don't recall seeing that.
He never showed you. Oh my God.
That might be a good thing.
That's a crazy story. Rex Ryan was such a interesting, really special for the New York Jets as far as personalities we've ever seen as a head coach in NFL history.
One of my favorite people in this world. I mean, he's one of a kind. I mean, you can say that. And I mean, if you got a chance to know and meet him, you would absolutely enjoy yourself. every moment.
I'm sure. As long as he just stays away from my feet. I heard the foot fetish that he has. I have to keep my feet away from him because I'm afraid he's going to try to cut them off and take them home with him.
They need to keep him away from the bull riding centers too.